現在と一つ変わらないものがある。
ガルドスだ。
Yeah, we all know he's sus, so let's just move on from that meme, please. Continuing right from where we left off last time, which was a bit of a while ago, Tsurugi had received a new card from his friends in his hometown. At the same time, Hagakure had come back with a map he had drawn of where Bringer was being held. Realizing that they might need a little more literal firepower in case they ran into the Eyes of Darkness, Tsurugi figured that he should actually add his new card to his deck as soon as he could get it out of its very fancy case. His friends tried to help with little success. I mean, to be fair, that was way more ninja than anything out of Naruto. Eventually though, Tsurugi managed to get it out just by asking it nicely. Now if only it were that easy to pull from the packs. Anyway, Tsurugi's group decided to infiltrate the castle, San Suo, at first for obvious and very justified PTSD reasons. Then again, this was probably one of the easiest stealth missions ever. The new Assassin's Creed is looking great. Fortunately, he was comforted by Hakuwa and oh hey look, a Gintama reunion. And he eventually decided to join them just as the Sword Eyes had found Bringer. However, they also found Brow guarding him, resulting in of course a battle for his freedom. The battle played out pretty typically, though as Hagakure pointed out, Tsurugi was getting some bricky hands, with him only being able to summon a couple of spirits on the 6th turn and taking some damage in the process. Fortunately, his luck did turn around that same turn thanks to a magic card called Charge Draw, which on top of giving him 2 draws, also let him look at the top 2 cards of his deck, and if they had charge effects, he could also add them, allowing for up to 4 draws with just 1 spell. Tsurugi got the maximum benefit out of it, and even earned some praise from Brow because noble warrior villain and all that jazz. However, that didn't stop him from bringing out his own ace. Notably, he brought out destruction by taking cores from his weaker spirits, destroying them in the process. This is likely to avoid Shining Sword's destruction effect, destroy your own cards before your opponent can, but he also wanted to raise it to level 2 in order to activate its other effect. Obviously, this was set up to let Tsurugi's new card shine, but still, good playing on this guy, who at first seemed like brute force was his only weapon. However, it was time for an upgrade, and after one more charge draw, he got his new shinier dragon. On top of having a powerful destruction effect that got rid of destruction without even battling it, Arc also had a pretty OP ability to give all charge spirits an extra symbol during battle, meaning that they could all deal double damage to the opponent's life. With that, Brow had to admit defeat, but not before Tsurugi extended an offer to join their side. Legit, I kind of appreciate how chill this red lead is. With that, Tsurugi won the battle and Bringer's freedom. Suo also arrived just as everyone was leaving the castle.
Well, that was pointless.
I mean, okay, it actually did kind of have a point, as it did start to win over Hakuwa, more to their side, who was being very pessimistic throughout this whole episode. Hey, if Precure taught me anything, miracles will always happen as long as you have a little flashlight by your side. Episode 22 was a bit of an interesting case in that it was technically a recap episode, but not a full-on clip show, at least based on the small number of reused clips they actually used. As a result, it was more of an episode meant to be a refresher, but it also added in a significant amount of new context to flesh out the established plot points. In short, it's the really good kind of recap episode that will prevent a show from feeling monotonous, right, friends? Anyway, after we learned that Hakuwa was gonna lose business because the city believed that he was siding with the Eyes of Light, we got our first bit of added context when Sora and Kizakura started to discuss why Atlantia was so submissive to Yaiba. Sure enough, part of it was because they had gotten used to their strict, yet stable work schedule, where they didn't even question what they were creating, which likely were parts for weapons and stingers. And if that doesn't hit a little too close to home, then I don't know what rock you've been living under. Still, to break up the harsh social commentary, Kizakura took the time to share some of her sweets with some dumpster divers. Elsewhere, we did get our requisite battle of the episode with Tsurugi versus Bringer on just some plain old playmats. Yeah, I also kind of like how even in this fantasy world, the characters can just play a normal game. Granted, Bringer was also providing the necessary sound effects.
もう一体のブレイドラでブロック破壊される
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
And because it wasn't a grand spectacle, they were able to dedicate more time in this episode for world and character building. In this case, Tsurugi's recent losses and victories made him realize that he did need to start to try and stand on his own, especially if it meant putting Bringer in less needless danger. Not to mention, finding his independence also let him understand the people of this country a little better, and while he understood their choices, he also questioned whether or not they were truly happy. This resulted in Bringer further elaborating on the history of Legendia and how Atlantia became the center of the wars across the nations back in the day. Ultimately, they were the biggest victor thanks to their technological advancement, which they then went full into following the war. However, the sudden industry growth led to an economic divide.
貧しさは犯罪を生み、国内は混乱した。
Oh, sorry, I think I might have switched to a news channel by mistake. Here, let me fix that. Do I even need to point out some of the historic and even current parallels that this over 10-year-old show is drawing from? Legit, I don't think I've watched an anime age as well as this show has. Anyway, Bringer further elaborated on how the king's marriage to Granada and the birth of his sons did help to raise the kingdom's morality and gain some political favor. Again, the show is way too real sometimes. However, following his passing and the resulting rebellion, Granada was blamed for the uproar and Yaiba took the throne. And throughout all of this, there was a constant figure who remained by the prince's side.
あなたの言葉です。それともガルドスの言葉です。
世の言葉です。
Uh-huh. Okay, I'll tell him. Hey Yaiba, a Mr. Reality is calling for you. Granted, Gardos was a simple mustache-twirling villain, and actually did manage to keep his true intentions pretty well hidden. This included convincing Yaiba to spare Brow, who offered himself up for Sudoku for failing to defeat Tsurugi. He likely did this because, unlike Yaiba, who didn't mind waiting on the incarnation of the next Blue Eye of Darkness, Gardos had other plans. But yeah, I really liked this scene, as it did show off the different moralities of the Eyes of Darkness, even the detached Rivore.
もしも私が裁きの真剣を欲し白夜王を出し抜いたら
Yeah, dude, don't even try to outplay the OG. Meanwhile, on the light side, Tsurugi had realized through Bringer's stories about his mother that she had gotten to know her people, unlike her older son. And while Yaiba had indeed built on and fostered that trust, it was clear that he was becoming progressively more distant from his people as he rose to power. Tsurugi believed that they needed to make a change, which, yeah, they probably did, as this sort of power structure was just a time bomb waiting to explode again. However, Hakua acted as a good counterpoint by asking what they could do following dethroning Yaiba. Obviously, none of them knew how to run a government, and even if the people were becoming apathetic to the world around them, they were at least seemingly establishing better lives for the next generation who wouldn't have to live through the conflicts they did. However, just by his body language, Hakua clearly wasn't all for such an oppressive society, and also kind of knew that it couldn't last under its current leadership. Most of all, he knew the people needed a little more freedom to just be able to sit around and enjoy sharing sweets with each other, as the kids from earlier returned Kizakura's favor. Yeah, have I mentioned yet how much I really like the writing of this show? The next day, our heroes got a message from a carrier pigeon that had been sent by a Sweet's mate branch. They had stumbled upon intel about another sword brave, which, as the narrator would end up spoiling, was the White Sword of Light. Gee, I wonder who that could go to. Anyway, they of course decided to head out on Sora's ship, which apparently didn't have a name yet.
ベリーラブリーな名前あり。スイートボンバー。
I'd almost assume that's the name of a new Precure attack, but nah, too violent these days. With that, the episode ended with our heroes heading out again, San Suo, though this time it was because he wanted to recruit someone else for their cause. I really like both of these episodes, though surprisingly, I kind of like the recap a little more. I mean, don't get me wrong, the battle and introduction of Tsurugi's new dragon was awesome, but the recap provided a ton of great character and world building, especially for the obvious new hero that's going to be joining Tsurugi's group soon. Again, I don't call it a clip show episode because one, it doesn't have that many clips, and two, I think it's a lot better than what that designation might suggest. Interestingly, these episodes are kind of polar opposites, 21 being a straightforward rescue mission and battle to advertise the cover card of the newest pack at the time, while 22 had only a casual and mostly off-screen battle that allowed for a lot more room for the show's great political intrigue. Obviously, those are very different genres, but both are interesting and more importantly, flow well into each other. In the case of the former, you just get an awesome battle topped with a pretty touchy moment that really showed how much Tsurugi has matured over the course of the series, while the latter, we learned a lot more about the setting and its many shades of grey. The previous episodes had shown that the people were indeed content with their current lifestyles, but as Tsurugi had learned more from interacting with them and hearing Bringer's stories, he realized that it might end up being a temporary piece that could lead to history repeating itself, especially as it was becoming clear that Gyarados was manipulating his brother. Yeah, it's still very much a shonen fantasy, with them even going off to find their next MacGuffin, but they're also managing to make us really feel for these heroes and villains. There was no clear answer to the kingdom's problems, but it was clear that they needed to get off their butts and find the answer. It really highlights the show's really engaging writing, and overall, both of these episodes help to really move things forward. Be it with fancy new cards or expanding the world, you really can't go wrong with either of these stories. One thing reviewing this show has done for me is get me ready for the head writer's next big project, which we will be covering. Yes, next month, in place of Precure, we're switching over to the Super Sentai of the Year, Boom Booger, which yes, I know that's a silly name, but I actually kind of like these costumes, and am looking forward to the first Sentai being written by Atsuhiro Tomioka. So look forward to it. Until then, though, for now, my friends, and, excuse me? Hello? Oh, hi, Mr. Reality. Yeah, sorry I had to put you on hold. Yeah, don't worry, I finished the review, so I'll get back to you in just a bit.